Hey, welcome back to another episode of Coach's Corner, brought to you by the world's favorite coaches, or at least the most passionate coaches in the world, focused on AI coaching and helping contact center agents in sales, service, and support roles learn how to perform better and faster through simulation training. In today's episode, I'm excited. Liz is joining us. Liz, if you don't mind doing a little bit on your background, I know that your whole career has been focused on leadership, development, helping agents and folks learn how to perform at their highest level and training them up. Would love if you could share a little bit about your background, where you work, and get our audience to know you a little bit.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone. My name is Liz Subia. I currently work with Q-Metrix as the Director of Communications and Engagement, and that encompasses our contact center as well, which I've been part of since its inception. I helped build up the contact center at Q-Metrix. Like Dan said, my career has been focused in healthcare very specifically. So over 20 years of experience in healthcare, and the last 12 years of my career have been inspired more in the contact center sector and supporting agents in the healthcare field. A lot of what I do is training and facilitating, coaching up and supporting agents in learning and being able to use the resources that are available for them, but also developing and creating those resources that will be helpful and supportive to the agents to make those phone calls easier. I'm big on first call resolution, making sure that when a person is on the phone, they're going to get their questions answered and then some so that they don't have to call back again. So a lot of the training and facilitation that I do is not just towards customer experience, but also towards getting those resolutions and avoiding our members or clients having to call us back for a second time because they forgot to ask a second question. So really anticipating what those follow-up questions are going to be has been a big focus of mine in the last 12 years to really support that first call resolution and help our clients not have to call back as often as we would love them to, but answer more questions than what they think they have.
And maybe you'd love them to call back, but they're like, not as much on our side. So I love the focus on first call resolution. And I always talk to folks when they have average handle time as a key metric. I'm like, yeah, but tied to resolution, handle time tied to resolution, right? So awesome focus. And Liz, as you think about your career, right, and this whole journey that you've been on for 20 years in healthcare, past 12 contact centers, developing agents to perform at optimal levels and really thinking about developing people. What is it that inspired you really on this career path to become a trainer and to help develop people? What has been like your biggest learning along the way that's pushed you on this path?
When I started, Dan, I wanted to be a nurse. I
Nice.
went to school, I did my pre-nursing requisites, and I was almost ready to go into the nursing program. And my school hit me with, your math and sciences are expiring, so you're going to have to retake them all. And I said, no, I don't think so. I had a 3-year-old son at the time. I needed to do more than what I was doing. So I changed career paths and I wanted to focus on something that was still helping and still in healthcare, even though I wasn't going to be a nurse. So I went the path of customer experience, customer service. I started working at doctors' offices, private doctors' offices, and slowly grew into bigger corporations. But the one thing that I learned, customer experience is face to face as well. The one thing that I learned is the compassion and the empathy that you show towards people is not something that you can be taught. You have to have it. And to me, to train or to uptrain agents or to identify them as, potential great candidates to join a call center, that was one of the things that I looked at. Are they compassionate? Do they have empathy? And how do they express it? Because without that, you can train, you can teach skills. You could have a degree in something that has nothing to do with customer experience, but still train somebody if they have that compassion and that empathy to actually be there and supportive. And I tailor this very much to healthcare because I think healthcare is one of the biggest industries that requires that empathy and that compassion to be had with people that are going to be helping clients and members. So that's what I look for, and that's one of the things that's driven me as well. One of my very first roles in life was being a nursing assistant. I worked at a convalescent home that had over 130 patients, and just to see The lack of compassion from some of their own family members drew me to say I want to be better than that, and I want others to be better than that as well. So that was a big driver for me to want to start in the field, but also one of the anchors that has held me in this is why I'm here, and this is what I want others to learn is that compassion and empathy.
I love it. And having known you for the past few years, Liz, you definitely are better than that. I know you're someone who cares deeply. You personally have a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy for the folks you work with, and your partners like SimTrain. So we love that. And I'm curious, as you think about like healthcare, acute care, right? Caring matters, right? And that empathy, that compassion that you look for in hiring agents. What about on the other side? Like if you when you think about this journey that you've been on and really in the last 12 years developing coaches and developing leaders, but also getting developed by those as you migrated from wanting to be a nurse to wanting to show that you care in other ways in the contact center, right? What qualities made the coaches that had the biggest impact on you? What made them truly stand out in your mind? Is it the same, or is there something a little bit different than that compassion and that empathy that you look for in agents?
I think it was a lot of that compassion and empathy, but also their drive. Were they willing to not go above and beyond, but do a little extra? Did they think of ideas? Were they presenting me as their supervisor or their coach with, hey, have you thought of doing it this way instead of the way that you're suggesting? So I've never been scared of somebody being able to do my job or somebody telling me an idea and it being better than mine. That's something that I very much look for in the coaches, the supervisors, and the leads that I help build up and train. So are you going to be eager enough to want to grow and show me how you want that growth and show me that you also have these great ideas? Or are you just going to wait and be a do person? Are you just going to do what I ask you to do? I look for those people that are going to do more. They're going to want to excel on their own, not just with the tools that I'm giving them, but come up with tools of their own and ideas of their own that are going to support others.
Nice. And look at that's I'm sure to combining that drive with that compassion and empathy is what, creates a great culture, right? Where people feel as though they can take a chance and grow. Is there anything you've done specifically, right? Where you've, really worked with your team members or worked with the folks within your organization to build that culture where employees, individual contributors, as well as their team leaders felt like, hey, I'm empowered to grow. I can contribute. I can take ownership and drive my own level of accountability. Is there specific tactics or things that you can look back on that helps build that culture, Liz?
To me, it's more of an open communication. I know in bigger organizations, we're used to the check-ins or the weekly meetings where you can share an idea or a thought. I'm open to that, but I'm also open to, hey, I forget things all the time. So if you think of something and you want to talk to me about it now, set something up, set up a quick meeting. We'll do a little huddle. I also encourage my team because we do meet with our leadership as well, and we meet, with other directors and chiefs in the company. I know that there's, a chain of command to follow, but no one, there's ideas. To me, you're open to share your ideas. They don't have to come to me first. If we're in a meeting and they ask if you have any ideas, feel free to share them in front of chiefs and directors. I'm quite open to that. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Maybe it's not something that will be acted upon right then and there, but it's definitely willing to be heard, not just by myself, but by others. And I think that's something that not everyone does. It's a follow the chain of command. And if you have an idea or a thought, bring it to your manager, and then we'll take it to the top. I'm fine with that, but I'm also fine with them being comfortable and expressing themselves and sharing their own thoughts and ideas to other leaders in the company.
Yeah. Awesome. The folks you term that skip level, right? Skip level meetings or thoughts and ideation. I love it. And when you think about, those people who might not be type A, who aren't ready to go skip level or jump their ideas into other areas and they're scared, they're nervous, right? They don't have the confidence that, helps them stand out. Do you have like an approach that you use really for maybe your type B, type C, like agents with less confidence, right? Hey, they're struggling to adapt to change. What do you do to coach them and pull them along, those folks that might be struggling in those areas?
Yes, I think it might sound silly, but I still use icebreakers, to
Nice.
start any meeting, whether it's a team meeting or individual one-on-ones. I like to use icebreakers because I want them to feel comfortable before we actually start talking about anything. But that also helps them when they're nervous or they're shy about wanting to say something, kind of opens them up a little. So I still very much use icebreakers, but I'll also ask a lot of questions. Well, what made you think of the idea? What scenario or what situation were you in that made you think of this? Have you shared this with anybody else on the team that maybe already went through it and you already have an answer or a solution for it? So I ask questions, kind of pick their brain a little to get them more comfortable with the thought of it's okay to share or it's okay to say something. But I don't do that forever. I'll do that for a period of time. When I start seeing a change or a little more comfort, then I'll push a little more to say, well, I'll challenge you to not tell me at the next one-on-one, but say it at the next team meeting. Present it to our small group, and then we can go from there and grow into other groups or other meetings to where now you're presenting to other managers or other directors in the company.
Yeah, I like the baby steps, right? I like walking them into that area of greater confidence, Liz. I think that's fantastic. And then challenging them along the way. I'm curious, right? As we see AI and different technologies enter the workforce, right? That adapt to change, this confidence thing kind of fits in, or even the type A's who are like, hey, I want to stand out, right? As the workplace continues to evolve, what role do you see AI playing in developing employees, in developing their confidence, in developing their capabilities and organizational communication as you think about your career even?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you're asking it because we actually just talked about this internally. All of my staff are cross trained. All of my staff know how to do my job in one way or another. So if ever Liz had to leave for an extended period of time, my team can function and can run my department without me being present. They'll need supervisors or leadership to support them, in areas where they can't make decisions, but they can very much run the department. We
Nice.
started phone calls for this season, and we've gotten a lot of AI agents answering our surveys. And one of the things that I had just talked to my team about was, guys, we're moving in that direction as well. We're big in quality. We do tons of quality assurance. And one of the things that I've suggested is maybe you want to grow into AI, not to do the quality assurance, but to support AI and quality assurance.
Yep.
We have a great team of programmers and coders in the company that are looking to design something for us. It's like, then you learn that so that you can QA that AI that's going to be coming in and taking over what we're doing. It's very manual for us right now. So encouraging them to learn it, but learn it in their strong skill set. So most of them are very strong in quality assurance. So, encouraging them to learn how is AI going to change quality assurance and how can you support it so that it
Yeah.
doesn't take your job, but you're also managing AI with the knowledge that you have and building it as well, right? Because AI doesn't build itself. You need somebody that has the actual knowledge so that you can build that. So, really growing into that space. But
Yep.
as a whole, our department's thinking of starting to use AI agents as well. So it's a little scary to actually be hearing them now, but it's also exciting. It's okay. We're thinking of heading in the right direction.
No, I love it. What you're talking about is like, hey, Dan, my team does some manual tasks and some highly administrative things that we're going to be pushing over to AI, right? So if you think about it, everyone says, hey, AI is not going to take your job, but people who know how to use AI better, they will, take your job. And you're getting your team geared up for that, right? To understand that, right? And that does create some challenges. What do you do from an engagement perspective to really keep those folks motivated, to keep them connected and keep them excited about, look, I might replace a third or 50% of what you do with AI task related activities, but I need you to master that other, two-thirds or that other half? How do you motivate them, keep them connected and engaged, Liz?
It revolves around the productivity and the output. We are a small team. We're a team of four, and our quality assurance, excuse me, last year was of 10% through all of our surveys. So the
Yep,
way I encourage them is, look, we've been pushing, we've been wanting to grow that to 100%. We want to do quality assurance on 100% of our calls. How are we
yep.
going to do that? AI is going to help us do that. And what are we going to do? We're going to help manage that AI system, and we're going to teach it exactly what we want so that we can get to that 100%. So really, I think the productivity that's going to come out of using AI has been one of the biggest motivators that I've used to keep the team engaged and encouraged to move in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, and you look at it, and it's this thing that kind of caught us off, not off guard, but just kind of caught us and said, "Whoa, is where's AI coming in? What's going to happen to me?" If you think about your career, right? Has there been a time like, let's call it constructive feedback, like maybe even a critical, review of your work? Has there been a time where you think about it? It's like, yeah, you know what? If I look back at my career, this constructive feedback or this critique of my work, it's really changed either how I dealt with a project or my career path or how I see things differently. Has there been a time prior to the onset of AI that you can look at and say, yeah, I can look back on this and it helps me, get the teams ready and get them excited about the future?
Yes, there has. So I I am a certified facilitator for customer experience, and I retook the course not because I wasn't good at it, but because I wanted to be excellent at it.
Yep.
I took it once a year, every year for those 5 years. I didn't need to. I only needed to go through it once, but I recertified 5 times because there was always something that I could learn from it. And one of the biggest things that I learned, and I'm old school, Dan. I started when laptops weren't a big thing. It was still the green screens. You know, everything was very manual. And I also came from a time where if you're 15 minutes there, you're on time. If you're on time, then you're late. So going through these certifications and going through the training, I learned how important flexibility is nowadays. You have to be flexible. You have to mold yourself to the team that you're working with. At the beginning, I was not short, but I was very by the book, if you'll say. If we're going to start something at 8 o'clock, then it's 8 o'clock on the dot. If I'm telling you to follow these steps, then you have to follow them in this specific order. And as I went through those certifications, I learned, well, you have to be a little more flexible than that, Liz. It can't always be, that fine and that perfect. You're working with a lot of different people, and there's going to be different thoughts. There's going to be different ideas. And it's not just the time frame, it's everything. I have this set up in steps 1 through 10. Maybe somebody looked at it and thought, Liz, maybe step 7 should be step 3 instead of 7. So really learning to be flexible and listen to the team and incorporate their thoughts and really consider that, I think has been one of my biggest lessons learned.
I love it. Yeah, I love that flexibility. It's like, hey, I'm subject to the process, right? I got to teach people the process, but they're people, right? So I really have to cater to them, and that goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about empathy and about compassion. And you're saying, yeah, I learned that, right? Maybe the hard way, or maybe I got some feedback. And is there anything else you can think about, like for a young professional, right? And some of these guys are coming in as AI native people, and some of them are learning AI as they go along. But for them, as they look to, aspire to become a coach or a leader that develops people themselves, right? And or maybe even, as you mentioned earlier, develops AI themselves. What should they be thinking about? What skills or habits would you suggest to a young professional they should start thinking about building and developing today in themselves?
I think one of the biggest things is being able to speak up, being able to express what you're thinking, and what you're feeling. And I'm not saying, don't think about what you're going to say before you say it. Definitely want to think about it, but be comfortable enough to know and be certain, this is really a good thought, or this is a good process, and I'm not going to be scared to share it. Just learning to speak up. One of my least favorite words, Dan, is just. And I've
Yep.
heard that so many times with a lot of these younger agents. I'm just a call agent. I'm just a quality assurance person. I'm just, reviewing this. It's like, no, you're not just doing it. It's like you don't understand the importance of your job. You need to remove that word from it because what you do is important and the thoughts that you have about it are important. So to me that's it. Just learning to be comfortable and not thinking it's just what I do. It's more than a just. You're doing a lot. So be comfortable with what you do and be comfortable with expressing it and sharing those thoughts and ideas so that you could grow into others.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about first call resolution before, right? That's been the core of your mission, right? I'm doing a job to solve a problem for a customer or to help them achieve an outcome. That's the resolution, which is outcome based. So you're teaching your team, hey, you got to be comfortable, right, in order to speak up, but you also have to be confident, and I'll give you confidence or t help you learn how to become confident that you can speak up and think about the impact of your work. I love that, Liz. I think it's a great lesson for everyone, right? And if you think about it, is there a time? I know we said there was an incident, right, about learning how to be flexible and looking back. What about a piece of advice, a great coach that you engaged with, a great leader, manager, advice that you either got from them or you look back and said, man, I wish I had gotten this a lot sooner when I was that young professional looking to break from nursing into CX. And I wish I knew that then or I got it. Like what was like that best advice you either got from a great coach or you wish you maybe had received earlier on that would have really helped get you to this point sooner?
I had a director in a previous job she was just amazing. She worked in many different areas of the company. She could run different departments, but her passion was the contact center. It was, the engagement and working with the agents. And one of the things that she ingrained in me was ask. You have to ask. It's like it doesn't matter who you're asking, it doesn't matter what their title is you ask. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know that, some of these questions, maybe I shouldn't be asking that person in specific. It's like it doesn't matter. You ask the question anyway, and if they're not the right person, they're going to point you in the right direction, or they're going to tell you, I don't know, but let me get that answer for you. It was something simple, you know, you just ask. That was literally what she said to me. You just ask.
Yeah.
And I followed that for very many years. There's actually a book on this guy. His name's Jia Jiang, and he did 100 days of going out, and he recorded all of this. I believe it's on YouTube. I read the book, didn't see the videos, but he did 100 days of going out and just asking random things. He went into a person's backyard and asked, "Is it okay if I play soccer with my son in your backyard?" And he went out to Dunkin' Donuts and he asked them, can you guys create me, the sign of the Olympics with the different colors with donuts? And he got a lot of no's, and that helped him, build up, that sense of it's okay if I get a no. It's not always going to be a no. I'm just learning from this experience. And I think that's really what she's trying to teach me is you just ask. And even if it's a no, or if they don't have the right answer, you're eventually going to get, to where you're heading, to where you want to be at.
I love it. You know what I love it as you're saying you get a lot of no's, right? The worst no is the unknown, right? Not knowing, right? And if you don't ask, you're not going to know, right? And that's the KNOW no, right? So I'd rather get a no than just not know. And that's, what that leader had taught you. I love it. I think that's great advice, but you did mention just ask. So get rid of that just because that's a word you don't
Yep.
like.
Yep.
Go ahead
Ask.
and ask. So and we talk about discovery all the time at SimTrain. Go deeper, understand why they're doing things, how they're doing things, when they're doing things, so you can figure out like we're not replacing, we're augmenting, we're supporting, we're becoming part of their process. And just asking, not just asking, but asking is the
Ask.
key. I love it. Hey, and one of the I belong to a bunch of different CEO councils, and I have some CEO coaches, and they always talk about first principles, right? And you're talking about a lot of cool things today. You're talking about having empathy, having compassion, being someone who's driven and teaches people how to find their drive in their belly, right? And if that's confidence with icebreakers and how I question and walk them through to an outcome. These are all great pieces of advice. Asking, right, and developing this skill set. Is there any like first principle or any sort of like principle that you ground yourself into or you ask other people to think about that they can start applying immediately to identify their own path to their career or their success or to become a great coach themselves?
Yes. And I think this stems back to all of the facilitation training that I took over those 5 years. But respect and accountability, be respectful of what you're doing, be respectful of others, of their thoughts, their ideas. you know like I said, there's no bad idea. It might not be the right idea at the time, but maybe it'll work right later. And accountability, we're human, we make mistakes, we're not going to be perfect, we're not going to know how to do things right from the get-go. But having that accountability and knowing when to say, hey, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, or I messed up and we need to fix it, and these are the ideas that I already have to fix. But really, owning up to it, to the good and the bad.
Yeah, Liz, I enjoy a nice glass of wine every now and again, and there's a guy, Oren Swift, who created a brand called Prisoner, and he sold it to private equity, and then 8 years later introduced a new wine called 8 Years in the Desert, because he wasn't allowed to create any wine for that period of time. And you were talking about 5 years twice today about I went through the training. I wanted to become a facilitator. I was going to teach people how to facilitate. I was going to facilitate. I wanted to be the best. How do I become the best? 5 years, which is longer than even going to college, right? And I focused on it. I continued to develop that skill set. I love that. I love all the advice you're giving us today on the best ways to develop others, to develop myself, to develop my skills, to go through change management and deal with things head on and asking and identifying the best solution. And you mentioned Jia Jiang and the book there. Any other books or podcasts or movies that folks here that might want to be motivated to watch what you watched or read what you read or listen to the podcasts that you listen to?
Yes. So I'm not big on listening because my train of thought, goes elsewhere. So I'm
Nice.
more of a reader or a movie watcher. I can tell you another book that has really made an impact on me is called Executive Presence by John C. Maxwell. And that's more, for somebody that's starting their career, going into a bigger organization, and they want to have that presence and they want to grow and they want other people to see them. I learned a lot from that book. Not just from appearance of what you look like, but like what you should be doing. Something as simple as if you know the person's name, even if they don't know who you are, when you see them, you greet them by name. And I did
Right.
that. I would walk across the parking lot every day and greet the same person because we so happened to get there at the same time. He was a director of contracting, and I was just a customer service agent. And every day I would greet him by name. Every day I would greet him by name. And I want to say it took about 6 months, but about 6 months later, when we were walking in together, he said, "Good morning, Liz," before I even said anything to him. And I was like, yes, like it's working. But that's just one of the things that I learned from that book, Executive Presence. But a movie, and I think it ties very much into, AI and how it's growing and how we need to, work with it. This movie I love, and I think I watch it at least once a month, is Hidden Figures. It's
That's a great.
the African Americans that are computers and they're working with NASA, to try and help them figure out this launch. But this IBM computer is coming into the mix, and what do? They learn it. They learn how to program it. They learn how to set it up. They learn how to fix it. Why? Because they don't want to lose their jobs. They're going to grow into this new role of this new computer that's coming in. And I personally just love the movie, but I think it very much ties in and kind of shows, we're there right now with AI. Like,
Yeah.
we need to learn it and we need to grow into it so that it doesn't take our jobs.
Yeah, my favorite scene from that movie is when she's getting yelled at for missing every day for a half hour, and she's like, "Do you know where I'm at?" He's like, "I don't care. I
Yep.
need you here." And she's like, "I'm walking 10 miles to go to the bathroom." Right? And it's like, "What? Let me fix that right now." And that was,
Yeah.
people don't realize sometimes the impact of what happens on them and the folks around them. But yeah, the impact of learning that IBM machine, learning, hey, I'm great with numbers, but I can help build and develop other areas within the business, within what we're doing. I love that, and I love the executive presence, right? And Liz Subia, you sharing your story with our audience. I appreciate that. I appreciate you going up to that individuals for 6 months, and I love how excited you were when they said, "Good morning, Liz." Right? Like the
Yes.
little along the way. So,
Yes.
hey,
I will have you know, he became one of my mentors after that. So
cool. I
it
love it.
works.
Yeah, we all could use a mentor, and we could all, mentor others. So, Liz, I appreciate you taking the time today. This was a great episode, super fun talking to you, learning a little bit more about your background, what makes you tick, and how you focus on developing and coaching leaders and frontline agents as well as managers as well. So, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to talking to you soon. And everyone, have a great week from Coach's Corner.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Dan. It's great to see you again.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye, Liz.